grinding, the act of spending an ungodly amount of time performing menial and repetitive tasks in the hopes of a reward or extra experience points. The thing is, sometimes it's hard to know if there's actually a reward for all that grinding you do. In some games, you don't know if there's a reward as the developers purposefully keep it a secret, and in some of those cases, it can even turn out you wasted all that time on a completely worthless thing. The following quests, though, are none of those, as they're sure to reward you for the hard work you put in. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are 10 secret rewards for hours of grinding. Number 10. They grow up so fast. World of Warcraft. Daily quests in World of Warcraft usually serve as a way to earn ingredients, currency, perishable items, and extra experience points after you've done everything in a specific region. However, in the case of the quest They Grow Up So Fast, daily quests offer unique challenges that test your determination in exchange for an unexpected but amazing reward. The two parallel versions of the quest for Horde and Alliance members require the player to spend 30 real-life days taking care of a baby tiger or a baby raptor until they grow up into big and terrifying beasts. Each day you receive a number of quests pertaining to the daily needs of your carnivorous protege, mainly involving feeding it the meat of equally ravenous creatures. And after you complete them, you have to wait until the next day to complete a new stage of the creature's growth. And you repeat that every single day for a full month. The process is incredibly time-consuming, as you can imagine, and requires you to remember to feed your pet to ensure you won't have to wait even longer to complete it. But as a reward, once the creature grows up, it turns into a majestic and unique mount that you can show off to all your jealous friends. It's like a Tamagotchi for World of Warcraft. Number 9. Onion Knights, Final Fantasy III. The Onion Knight class is a bit of a running joke in the Final Fantasy series. It's the pinnacle of a zero to hero story, as the class starts off with some of the worst stats within each particular Final Fantasy title and becomes the strongest fighter in your squad once it reaches its max level. This is best evidenced by the original Onion Knight from Final Fantasy III. The Knight's starting stats are simply terrible, and unlike the other classes in the game, leveling up the Onion Knight increases them only marginally. Your Onion Knight will stay a pushover and the laughingstock of your party for pretty much the entire duration of the game, begging the question of why you'd keep them around at all. Well, once the Onion Knight reaches the final level, all of its minuscule stats suddenly go up to 99, which is the highest possible value that no other class can reach themselves. A max level Onion Knight can defeat most endgame bosses solo, which might just make putting up with them for the rest of the game worth it. Number 8. Infinity Blade, Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley is a cozy farming game about living the simple country life and making friends with the titular town's residents. Until you get into the combat section, that is. That's when Stardew Valley becomes a gauntlet filled with challenges, survival, power scaling, and most importantly, hours of grinding devoted to finding and crafting the most powerful weapon in the game. The secret Infinity Blade is a combination of another secret weapon, the Galaxy Sword, with plenty of rare and hard to get resources. Just to get the base ingredient in the form of the Galaxy Sword, the player needs to spend a good few hours in the game to unlock the desert area, then find an extremely rare prismatic shard that they can place under a rock to turn it into the weapon. After you do that, the grind becomes even worse, as turning the Galaxy Sword into the Infinity Blade requires 3 Galaxy Souls that you get for completing difficult tasks and missions, as well as 60 Cinder Shards that occasionally drop from magma monsters. The sword you get for all this work pays back tenfold, however, as its speed and high damage output make it the ultimate tool for clearing high-level dungeons. Number 7. Boxomancy, Baldur's Gate 3. For all the magic, legendary weapons and explosives you can find in Baldur's Gate 3, the most powerful and reliable force at your disposal is good old gravity. Shoving enemies off ledges is a sure way of killing them instantly, but if you want your exploitation of Newton's law to turn from situationally deadly to being able to one-shot any boss in one go, you're gonna have to put in some serious work. The jump abilities of barbarians and owlbears let you deal additional damage to enemies you land on based on the length of your leap. Now, normally the bonus damage from this ability isn't that significant, as most ledges in the game aren't that high. This said, if you've got the patience to do so, you can actually build your own jumping point using the random barrels, chests, and boxes you find all over Faerun. While this isn't perhaps grinding in the traditional sense, it is as much a test of patience as anything else on this list. It takes hours to collect enough debris to build a tall tower, and we mean tall. But when you put in the work, the results of your jumps are truly staggering. A sky-high tower of boxes can make your jumps deal thousands of points of damage in a single jump, which is more than enough to take out anything the game throws at you. Number 6, martial arts, Kenshi. Kenshi is a constant game of struggle. When you're not running away from slavers and bandits, you're likely getting eaten alive by angry big things, or you've already been eaten alive by them. It makes sense that in such a hardship-filled world, the only way to become stronger is through, you guessed it, even more hardships. That's where the martial arts skills come in. Martial arts is a special combat skill in Kenshi used for unarmed fighting. This makes leveling up the skill extremely time-consuming and painstaking, as while other weapon-based combat skills allow you to stand your ground even without much know-how, going up unarmed against armed opponents almost always results in your character getting their butt kicked. It takes hours of risking your martial artist's life in unfair fights that seem to go nowhere, but a sufficiently high-level martial arts skill is secretly the best combat skill in the game. Not only does it make your character capable of taking entire armies down on their own, but they can also never be disarmed, seeing as their weapons are their hands and feet. Well, you can technically lose your limbs in Kenshi, but once you replace them with cybernetic prosthetics, your punches and kicks become even stronger. Number 5, EX weapons, Yakuza Like a Dragon. The EX weapons from Yakuza Like a Dragon are the final upgrade for the weapons wielded by your character Ichiban and his entourage. To get any weapon upgrades into an EX variant is a laborious task that takes grinding for millions of yen and rare ingredients required for each specific weapon type. Seriously, from my own experience, this is a whole get out your notebook type of grinding. Just to get started, you need to spend over 20 million yen on the Romance Workshop that lets you upgrade your gear. From then on, the list of resources only grows in number, and to make even one EX weapon, you need to invest a lot of time into the most profitable minigames, as well as search and shop for the extremely rare resources used in crafting them. All this extra work might not seem worth it, but while the game won't mention this to you, combining the right EX weapons with their corresponding profession and elemental damage makes a tremendous difference when taking on the Millennium Towers, which you'll visit in the final parts of the game. With the EX weapons in your hands, earning all the achievements for Like a Dragon is a walk in the park. Number 4, Dawnguard Rune Axe, The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. It's generally agreed upon by Skyrim players that the most powerful weapon in the game is the Ebony Sword, the Daedric artifact of Mephala that grows stronger every time you kill an ally. However, there's actually a weapon that can be scaled to an even greater extent and without sacrificing the lives of your friends, and that's the Dawnguard Rune Axe. The axe obtained in one of the side missions for the Vampire Hunters faction of Dawnguard possesses a unique scaling ability that increases the amount of stun damage it deals with every slain undead. The modifier resets at dawn, but due to a bug, you can actually prevent the reset permanently by sharpening it with a grindstone. From then on, you can scale the axe's damage indefinitely, and after a few hours of killing dragons and vampires with it, it can become strong enough to take down most enemies in one hit. Of course, if you want to put even more time into grinding, you can turn that most into all enemies. So if you like the idea of wielding the concentrated power of the sun, you better make sure Skyrim is free of any and all undead. Number 3, getting the perfectly preserved pie, Fallout 4. Any Fallout player who made their way to the dugout in Diamond City's favorite watering hole knows that the true goal of the game isn't to find Sean or deal with the Institute. It's to get your hands on a slice of the perfectly preserved pie. The main reason why the pies are so desirable is, surprisingly, not their tasty exterior, but the fact that the claw machines they're inside are broken. You can spend hours interacting with them, but the only thing the claw will do is gently graze the pie's side and then retract back into place. For this reason, most players believe getting the pie is impossible. Those who don't give up, though, and don't mind devoting a few hours to pressing the action button, will be surprised to find out the machines do work. And what follows is a unique, delectable, and dangerously chemical treat. After all, of course, there's a reason these pies look so good even after 200 years of nuclear fallout. Number 2, upgrading the model gun, Dirge of Cerberus, Final Fantasy VII. Dirge of Cerberus is one of the weird kids of the Final Fantasy series who decided to drop the series' RPG formula in favor of becoming a third-person shooter. The gameplay is very gun-centric, so you're going to want to pay close attention to what firearm you're using. And if you're looking for the best of the best, your main choice of weapon, believe it or not, is going to be a small toy replica. The model gun is a joke weapon that can be secretly turned into the most powerful gun in the game, the Ultima weapon, by putting in a ridiculous amount of time and money into upgrading it. To fully upgrade the model gun to its legendary form, you need a total of 2,500,000 gil. You'll have to spend hours farming the money on boring and repetitive levels, getting at most 200 gil per enemy, but once you gather your funds, the Ultima weapon is certainly worth it. With stats that double the strength of other fully upgraded handguns, the weapon is a beast that makes the rest of the game a breeze. Number 1. Zenith, Terraria. Terraria, the 2D survival game, features a mind-boggling amount of special biomes, bosses, and craftable items that you create using things obtained from said biomes and bosses. Crafting every single blade in the game is a daring task that requires an absurd amount of time and effort. Coincidentally, it's also the only way to forge the most powerful blade in the game, known as the Zenith. The Zenith is a craftable legendary blade that uses all the other blades you can make and find in the game as its ingredients. If that sounds ridiculous, it's because it definitely is. You basically have to complete the game, spend most of your time grinding for dozens of unique and legendary blades, only to refine all of them into another one. The results of this monumental task are well worth it though, as the Zenith is a truly murderous weapon, dealing huge amounts of damage with magical blasts that are a combination of the different abilities of the blades you used in crafting it. Unfortunately though, you probably won't have too many bosses to test it on, as you had to kill most of them in order to make it.